This is Trinity Storm and you're watching 18th part of Naruto the Unknown Dojutsu. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
In the meantime, install. Jujiro Uzumaki entered a large room with floral decorated walls and architecture that can only be described as magnificent. As Emperor of the Empire, he owed it to his father's legacy to keep the palace as beautiful and elegant as it was back then. He had doubts, however, that his son Haruko would be able to handle everything there is to know about the palace, including ensuring that every floor was swept, every window was wiped, and every wall was dirt-free. Knowing his son, he'll most likely just sit around and do what he does best. He just hoped he wouldn't die soon because that would mean handing over the throne. A large circular table in the center of the room was surrounded by 8 large chairs. During the early days of Juhiro's reign, the palace's meeting room was specifically built for the Emperor and the Seven, as he was the one who recruited the Storm Seven. When he entered the room, everyone in the room stood up to show their respect. He then proceeded to his chair, which was in the center, at the opposite end of the room. Hiro, the Seven's leader, stood to his right, while Fuko, the woman of the shadows, stood to his left. When he finally sat down, all of the other Eyes of Storm did as well. There was only one more member needed to complete the group. "The meeting is in session," Jujiro said, beginning the formal meeting between them as he sipped the cup of tea that had been prepared in front of him. "Baku, how are things in the academy?" he asked the person sitting at the far end of the table, opposite his chair. Said individual stood up from his seat, and he appeared to be quite old for an Eye of Storm. He was a 6'5" tall, fair-skinned, well-toned old man with blue eyes and wavy, silvery white hair that almost reached his shoulders, with bangs framing the sides of his face. He has a mustache that is connected to his white beard that reaches his upper torso and is also connected to his mane hair via sideburns. He also had a prominent nose bridge and prominent cheekbones. The wrinkles on his face were a clear indication of his age. He dressed in a long, light-colored robe that reached his knees, with a tattered bottom edge and intricately designed linings at the sleeves. The robe was linked by a dark and long tattered cape that ended in a high collar cut into several elongated spikes that surrounded the back of his head. He also wore a belt tied around his waist, as well as dark boots and a long staff with a distinct ruby on its crown. "The new batch of students, unlike the previous ones, are a little loud and mischievous, Your Majesty," he replied. "But I believe that with a little discipline, their attitudes will be similar to those of my previous students." Moving on, one of my teachers handed me his resignation form, explaining that his wife had died and that he might not be able to leave his daughter alone at his house. I did not refuse because it is reasonable. However, the academy is currently one teacher short. That's all I've got to say about the academy. This man's name was Baku Uzumaki, and he was known as the King of Elements due to his mastery of every nature transformation as well as the other elemental natures created when 2 elements were combined, such as lava release, ice release, and dust release, among others. As befits his age, he is also regarded as one of the Seven's most quiet and stern members, rarely displaying strong emotion. He is regarded as the wisest of the Seven, and despite being regarded by his peers and countrymen as the most powerful of the Seven and one of the strongest ninjas in the world, he is well aware of his abilities and limits. Throughout his years in Zentarian, he had grown to be protective and caring of his fellow Eyes, always willing to lend a helping hand to anyone in need. Most of the Seven describe him as both gentle and strict. Gentle, as when he has expressed distaste for barbaric methods of eliminating enemies, having learned from his previous experiences, which included him unknowingly killing his own brother as a child. Strict because he owes Jujiro a debt for granting him a new home and life, he follows direct orders given to him without question and scolds or even threatens anyone who shows disrespect for the Empire's leader. As the Academy's head teacher, he wants the future ninjas he trains and teaches to grow strong and wise so that they can see the world as he does and protect their homeland with all their might. "I see," the Emperor replied quietly. "What information do you have about Akira's final year at the Academy?" Is there anything we should know about her progress as she approaches graduation in 4 months? The empire's education was vastly different from that of the 5 countries. While students in villages such as Konoha, Iwa, and Kumo graduate at the start of their adolescent years, students in Stall study for 15 years to ensure that their knowledge exceeds that of normal people. Most children begin their academy years when they are 5 years old and finish when they are 20. Upon graduation, all ninjas produced by the academy become part of the empire's forces. But things were different for the 7, for example, Hiro. He graduated as an Eye of Storm at the age of 16 and has been serving Jujiro ever since. Because she was the final Eye, it also applied to Akira Uzumaki. She has changed dramatically and continues to impress, he said, rubbing his beard. She aced her exams, and she can collaborate with anyone whenever I assign a project to her class. I have no doubt she will excel in her final exams, and I am confident she will prove herself to be a worthy Eye when she comes to live in the palace with us. That's good to hear, he said as he turned to face the man sitting on Baku's left side. Moving on, Raiji, how are you handling our trade routes? I've heard there's been trouble brewing on one of our shipping routes, and you know, of all people, how important it is for us to keep our economy growing and progressive. We can't afford to make a simple mistake because it would harm our relationships with the smaller lands nearby. The man next to Baku stood up and adjusted his white undershirt to allow him to breathe freely. He was a tall, fair-skinned man with medium length, wavy, and spiked orange hair that ended with a little curl at the tip. He has 2 piercings on the bridge of his nose and 2 brow piercings. He wore black, red, and yellow robes, black pants, and simple boots. He also had a long scar on his forehead and a tattoo on the right side of his neck with the kanji for 9. His name was Raiji Uzumaki, and he was also known as the Prince of the Jinchurikis due to his unrivaled power as he possessed the abilities of all 9-tailed beasts. Because the Sage of the 6 Paths created the Biju, he was referred to as the King, and because Raiji possessed all of their power, he was referred to as the Prince. So far, there is nothing serious going on with the shipping of goods towards the surrounding islands, Your Highness, he replied neutrally. Pirates have been spotted in the waters near the Land of Waves, and according to reports, they stop all of our shipping vessels and rob them of any possible bounty. I've also heard that they've taken control of some of the land there, and if that's true, they now control the shipping route. He was known for being extremely confident, as he loved fighting and would get bored if he wasn't on the battlefield. He has no problem dealing with strong opponents, and he only uses the tailed beast powers that he bore, refusing to use any other technique or weapon. Despite his love of fighting, he takes his position seriously because he feels the Empire's weight is primarily on his shoulders as a result of his management of the Empire's overall economy. He is also described as strict because he is uninterested in anything other than the Empire's economy or fighting, and prefers working alone most of the time rather than accepting assistance from his squad. Nonetheless, due to his loyalty to the Emperor, he, like the other Eyes, will carry out direct orders when given to him. But as long as he has his own freedom, no one can stop him once the battle begins. Pirates, you say? As he rubbed his chin, Jujiro said. I'm not surprised at all. But I think this nonsense needs to stop and they should just give up and admit defeat, don't you? He looked around at the Storm 7, who all nodded at the same time. This must then be addressed as soon as possible. Hiro? He summoned his right-hand man. What is it, Your Highness? He asked, his voice emotionless. Following this meeting, I want you to dispatch a squadron to the Land of Waves and inform all of the pirates lazing around there of the ultimatum I'm issuing. Either they leave and never return, or they face the Empire's wrath. Should they respond in any way, your men are free to deal with them as they see fit, as long as the shipping route is restored. Even a minor hiccup in our trading system will bring us shame. Do you understand what I mean? Have your men confirm it by speaking with the locals. Your Highness, it will be done. He then bowed his head slightly to express his respect. Okay, that's the end of my questions. Now that we're almost done with this meeting, I just wanted to let everyone know, with the exception of Hiro, Fuko, and Kenzo, that the future gateway plan will be implemented in about a month. The remaining eyes shifted slightly in their seats as a result of this statement. I've already told them about the plan, and I've assigned them a task that will be useful for our future if everything goes as planned. Is this about the gateway that opens the portal 8 years in the future, Your Majesty? Baku clarified so that no one made assumptions. That's correct. The eclipse will occur in about a month, and our plan will be activated the moment the gateway does not feel the light of the moon shining upon it. In addition, other villages will almost certainly send ninjas to investigate the gate, which is where Hiro, Kenzo, and Fuko come in. Our intended target is Konoha, as they are home to the last Uzumakis in the world. If Kushina Uzumaki's son is sent to investigate Uzu and the gateway, it would be an excellent opportunity to learn more about him, and we could learn more about him in the process. They will fight her son on the outskirts of the Land of Fire before venturing to the Land of Whirlpools to inform us of what he is capable of and whether he will grow into a powerful warrior of us someday. In any case, since it isn't Konoha who responds to Uzu, I've told Kenzo, Hiro, and Fuko to deal with them however they see fit, but not by killing them, as that would jeopardize our cover. Is that all the information you were looking for? After a few seconds, one of them raised his hand in an attempt to ask a question. He was sitting next to Fuko when he cleared his throat and began to speak. Please excuse me, Your Highness, but is it really a good idea to send the Frost Commander, the Woman of the Shadows, and the Man of 1,000 Years to the Land of Fire? Even if it is a remote possibility, they may recall their faces and conduct an investigation. He was a medium-sized, lightly tanned man with medium-length, wavy, messy blonde hair that was parted to the left and hung over his left eye. He had brown eyes and numerous piercings on his ears. He was dressed in orange coveralls with black protective armor on his torso that was securely strapped to his body with harnesses. He also wore dark boots that reached past his knees and black rubber gloves that reached all the way to his forearm. His name was Toshiro Uzumaki, and he was better known as the Star Prince, because of his abilities that mimicked those of a celestial, owing primarily to the Rinnegan that he possessed, as well as the ability to fly through the air with meteor. He could use a few other space techniques, but it wasn't his strong suit. He is known for being stubborn and carefree, and he is the only member of the Seven who disobeys orders whenever he wants. He has shown an adventurous side due to his ability to use meteor, even suggesting to Jujiro that he could go all around the 5 countries and be the one to provide the Empire with information so that they wouldn't have to use spies anymore. Of course, the Emperor declined his suggestion because he needed the 7 to be working together in stall rather than apart. Despite this, his devotion to Jujiro and the Empire is admirable, and he has shown a serious side when pushed too far by an opponent, as he does not like to be underestimated, especially by those who haven't heard of his exploits. If that happens, we'll just have to keep a low profile for the time being, the Emperor replied calmly. But if they prove to be stubborn in their pursuit of the perpetrator, I'll have Hiro send in the girl training to be an assassin as a gift for them. She's currently sleeping in the dungeons, but once she's finished with her exclusive training, she'll be like putty in our hands. That should be enough to divert their attention away from us, don't you think? Toshiro considered it for a moment before nodding. Are there any other questions you'd like to ask? Nobody raised their hands or spoke up in response to his question, and he was ready to call it a night. This meeting is now adjourned because there are no further questions. Everyone, get up, he said softly as he stood up, prompting all the other eyes to do the same. He then thrust his right arm out, finishing with a closed fist. Everyone inside was watching what he did, and then he began to speak loudly. Long live the Empire, he declared emphatically. Long live the Empire, the 7 said as a group, before turning their arms to reveal the other side, which revealed the Uzumaki Empire symbol tattooed on their wrists. To see the exact appearance of the Empire's symbol, look up my DeviantArt account. I use the same username there as I do here. After a few seconds, they all retracted their arms and left the room, beginning with Baku, who wanted to get back to the academy as soon as possible. Jujiro smiled as the eyes left the room and he drifted off to his thoughts. The Uzumaki clan will rise again, he told himself. Konoha 1 week later. Tsunade Senju had been appointed as the 5th Hokage for a week. She appeared to be happy in her job, with the only thing she dislikes being paperwork. Hiruzen moved back in with his son and grandson, A.N. Asuma and Konohamaru were assumed to be living together, after leaving the Hokage mansion. Everyone who was in the hospital due to their injuries, including Kakashi and Sasuke, has been released. While the former was able to leave the facility just a few days after being healed, Sasuke was forced to stay for a little longer due to additional tests and checkups. It was due to his Mangekyo Sharingan, which was the source of his trauma 3 weeks ago. They needed to make sure his eyes were in perfect working order to avoid his previous incident with Kabuto, which nearly cost him his life if Kakashi hadn't intervened. Sasuke didn't mind because his hospital room was clearly alive the entire time. After he had made his peace with Naruto, the blonde teased him some more before fleeing the scene to look for Sakura. He would have stopped Naruto if it hadn't been for his current condition at the time. Just a few minutes later, the Uzumaki returned with Sakura, and she immediately hugged Sasuke upon seeing him, prompting the Uchiha to raise his middle finger to his friend, rival. Just as things were about to get heated between them, the Pinkette did her job as a peacekeeper by giving them both her signature glare and putting them in their place. Aside from that, Naruto challenged him to a sparring match the day after he was discharged, as they still owed each other money. Sasuke accepted without hesitation, and Naruto even told him that he could use his Mangekyo Sharingan to gain an advantage because the Uzumaki would undoubtedly rely on his space techniques. Sasuke's response surprised both him and Sakura. "Hey, you know what?" exclaimed an overjoyed Naruto. "When we fight, you should use your Mangekyo Sharingan. You know I'm going to use my space jutsus during the match, so you should keep an ace with you so you can keep up." "I'll pass," Sasuke said, closing his eyes. Naruto and Sakura's eyes widened as he spoke. "What?" asked Naruto, perplexed by what he had heard from the Uchiha. "I'm not going to use it. That's why it brings back horrible memories. I'm confident in my Sharingan, and I don't want to be like my brother. A heartless, cold murderer." Naruto could only nod in response, knowing what Sasuke had gone through for him to say that his Mangekyo brought back terrible memories. Sakura stood off to the side, staring dumbly at the two of them. "Your choice. But don't think for a second that you'll win against me just because of your Sharingan," Naruto said with a grin, confident of his victory. "I'll demonstrate how strong I've become since the exams. Simply wait and see, Teme. I have no doubt that you'll win," shrugged Sasuke before smirking at Naruto. "But that doesn't mean I can't make it difficult for you, Dobi." Soon after, the room was filled with laughter and insults, and Sakura joined in on the fun. This was their group. It appeared to be exactly what happened between the three of them in the Forest of Death, where they were all laughing under the stars before going to sleep, the first time they truly bonded like a true family. Sakura Haruno was walking through the streets towards Naruto's apartment, humming to herself. Kakashi dispatched her to pick up Naruto because he had failed to appear for his scheduled sparring match with Sasuke. In fact, the Junin arrived before the Uzumaki. When Sasuke noticed that Naruto was still not present at their usual training area when Kakashi arrived, his blood began to boil. He vowed to give the Dobi a good beating if he showed up, which made Sakura and Kakashi sweat. Only a day after being released from the hospital, and he was grumpy again? That's when the masked ninja assigned Sakura the task of retrieving Naruto from his home and investigating why he was late today. She only went to her blonde teammate's apartment about 2 or 3 times a year, once to return something to him and once to drop by after going to Haku's house. That was solely because she was not his girlfriend, and she had never had the courage to enter the home of the boy she used to bully. She came to a halt in front of his door after ascending the flight of stairs and gently knocked on it. "Naruto?" she called out softly. After a few seconds, there was no response from the blonde Uzumaki. She raised an eyebrow in perplexity. It's 10:34 a.m., and he's still not awake? She knocked again, this time a little louder so the boy inside could hear. Naruto? She asked again, this time louder. Nobody inside responded to her knocks or cries, as they had previously. She then banged her hand on the door as loudly as she could. Naruto? She exclaimed, hoping for even a simple response from her teammate. But no one responded. She scratched her pink locks before pressing her ear against the door to hear what was going on inside. She could hear snoring and clenched her fist in rage as her demonic aura flared off of her. In her mind, she snarled, that blonde-haired punk. I'll show him how to be late for a team meeting. She then kicked the door open with all her might, revealing it to be unlocked all along, but she didn't notice. Naruto! She yelled, her voice echoing throughout the living room. You better wake up right now, if you She came to a halt in the middle of her sentence when she noticed empty ramen packets all over the floor. She didn't bother counting how many there were because there were already so many. Oh, my god, she exclaimed as she noticed Naruto sleeping with his head and arms on top of the small table in front of him, his couch just behind him. He was snoring loudly while holding an empty ramen cup. What the hell? She exclaimed, sprinting over to where he was. Hey, come on. Up you get, she said, grabbing his shoulders and pulling him up into a sitting position on the couch. Then, all of a sudden, he began coughing up noodles, prompting Sakura to look at him with concern. Are you She attempted to ask, but was cut off. I'm fine, he cut her off quickly, adjusting in his seat before using his fist to keep his coughs in check. I'm fine, I just trained late last night, he admitted, taking deep breaths as he set the cup on the table. And then I got hungry, so I ate several bowls of ramen and passed out. Sakura then took a seat beside him. I'm not sure, maybe because of the stress. I planned to take our fight seriously today, which is why I needed to train. Then, when I had the inkling that the Teme might be planning something, I took it even more seriously. Sorry for the delay. I didn't forget about today's sparring match. She moved her head. No, you stupid, she sighed. I should be sorry. I barged into your home without permission and didn't realize you were out cold. She then lightly tapped his shoulder. Now, go take a bath while I clean up this mess you made, she said, referring to the ramen packets scattered across the floor. Naruto cocked his brow at her. Are you certain? I don't want to compel you in any way, Sakura-chan. When she stood up and began picking up the empty packets scattered around, he trailed off. It's all right, Naruto. I'm used to cleaning our own house at home. And I'm sure Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke-kun won't mind if we're late. Now go clean yourself up and put on some new clothes while I clean up this place. Got it? She told him, looking up briefly before returning her attention to picking up the ramen packets. Naruto shrugged as he entered his bedroom to prepare for a quick bath. However, before he could fully enter the room, he turned around and decided to ask Sakura a question. He could only hope that he doesn't get beaten up for his extremely embarrassing question, which prompted him to kneel and pray for protection to whatever deity exists. Sakura-chan? He asked, the pinkette looking up at him, waiting for him to speak. Is it okay if I ask you a question? Sakura nodded but did not look him in the eyes. Do you still like Sasuke? He asked slowly, causing the girl to freeze in place. I'm not trying to belittle you or anything. I just want to know the truth. You haven't been, clingy towards him since the exams, he rubbed the back of his neck. And I've noticed that whenever we fight, you have no problem whipping him into shape. I expected you to be angry with me only when we disagreed, but it appears that you treat him the same way when he acts arrogantly. Have I? She asked, feigning confusion, which Naruto immediately recognized. Sakura-chan, don't act perplexed. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. I just need a straightforward response from you. Come on, you can trust me with your secret because I will not reveal it to anyone." Sakura sighed after a few seconds of contemplation. She was apprehended. "Fine, I'll admit it," she exhaled. "I like him still." Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. "Look, I know he openly rejected me in front of everyone back then, but I didn't mind because I could tell he couldn't take it anymore at the time. He was irritated because of his fangirls, and I assumed that was why he said those words. I'm hoping for an opportunity to show him that I still care about him, just not in the way he used to." Naruto grinned. "Don't be concerned, Sakura-chan. I believe you have a good chance," he said with a grin, causing the pinkette to look up at him in surprise. Did she hear him correctly? "You're not the same person you used to be." "Sorry, but I thought you were annoying when we were at the academy." Naruto gulped as a tick mark appeared on her head as a result of his remark. But now look at you. You've evolved. You're not overly concerned with the teme, and you're a strong kunoichi. In fact, I now consider you to be my own younger sister. Simply continue to be yourself, and you'll gain Sasuke's attention. I think you can." Sakura smiled at his words of encouragement before quickly approaching him and slamming him on the head, causing him to cry out in pain. "Ow! What was the point of that?" he demanded, grabbing the area where the pinkette had just struck. "That's cute and all," she said, before the background behind her burst into flames and an image of the Shinigami appeared behind her. "But there's no way in hell I'm little," she said threateningly, prompting Naruto to nod furiously in response, not wanting to feel her wrath. "Good. Take a bath now before I smack you again." As soon as he heard that, he dashed to the bathroom to avoid his frightened teammate. Naruto quickly dressed up and left after taking a bath, only to discover Sakura had cleaned up his apartment. After a quick thank you, they made their way outside and towards the training grounds. The sun was shining brightly in the sky, and Naruto was looking forward to his fight with Sasuke. He'd never fought him in a one-on-one match before, so this was a first. If he could, he'd beg Kakashi to let them go all out, but he knows that won't happen. His thoughts then returned to the intense battle he had just days before with the snake Sannin, Orochimaru. He suddenly remembered that they couldn't kill him back then and instead let him go, which meant he was still out there, lurking in the shadows. "Hey, Kurama. Do you think Orochimaru has something planned for you?" Knowing him, he'll probably come up with an even more devious plan to exact his revenge, he told the Biju inside him. "Well, he did say he still has a way to get both of his arms back, Kit," Kurama responded. "Neither you nor I know how that could happen, but I can tell you it's not good. I'm getting worried, you know. I'm getting the impression it has something to do with Sasuke." His worried gaze darted to the ground. "Are we having this conversation again, Kit?" As previously stated, Orochimaru may have done the same to countless others. Remember how you said he tried to bite you as well during the invasion? The more you think about it, the worse it becomes. I recommend that you remain calm until he appears again. Well, aren't you the one who's concerned? With a smirk, Naruto said. You've never expressed such concern for me before. What's the matter? Did you turn over a new leaf like Sasuke? The Kyuubi sighed. If anything bad happens to you, it will also happen to me because I'm a part of your body, Kit, he said before crossing his arms. I'm just doing what I have to do to keep you alive and well. You have no idea how many times I healed you during your childhood because the villagers were bitterly opposed to you because of you know what. Please don't remind me. Naruto responded, recalling times when he was pursued, called various derogatory names, beaten up, and so on. I wonder what things would have been like if Ka-san hadn't died. He wondered as a mental image of him and Kushina bonding appeared. Would I have still gotten the Uchtengan? I mean, if she hadn't died years ago, the villagers would never have attacked me because they are terrified of her power. But now that she's gone, it was my eyes that got me through those difficult times. I can't say anything about it, the Biju exhaled. Although I can definitely say that it was because of your eyes that you got to where you are now. Kushina did assist you in some ways, but she died before you could become a ninja. Kit, you had to work hard to get to where you are now. You were able to demonstrate to everyone that you were not the same person you were before. I'm sure the habanero would be proud of you. No, wait. She's already pleased with you. Naruto made an embarrassing smile. Thank you very much. Sometimes I wonder why he was interrupted from his conversation with his tailed beast companion by a pat on the shoulder, which brought his attention back to reality. He turned his gaze to Sakura, who had an uncertain expression on her face. What is it? He inquired, his brow furrowed. She began to shiver. Is it just me, or is it getting a little chilly here? She asked, rubbing her arms to generate body heat. Seriously? Naruto did a deadpan. The sun is high in the sky, heating everything up. What makes it cold? Are you completely insane? He wasn't feeling cold at all, but unknown to him, the other villagers all around him and Sakura were also shivering like the pinkette. He was just too focused on his teammate to notice anything. Sakura didn't know either, because she was convinced she was hallucinating. She moved her head. No, just forget about it. Maybe I'm hallucinating. But seriously, you're not feeling cold at all? She asked him again, only to have him shake his head no. I'm not sure why, but I'm kind of cold. You might think I'm crazy, but I know what I'm feeling. Naruto shrugged, not really concerned because he couldn't figure out what she was talking about. There was nothing cold about his surroundings, nor was there any rain. It's exactly what he said. The sky was bright with sunlight. Hello, Naruto. Sakura. The blonde and pinkette turned to face whoever was speaking, and in front of them stood Kiba Inuzuka and Hinata Hyuga. The members of Team 8 were approaching them, Kiba with a large wolf-like grin on his face, Akamaru peacefully resting atop his hood, and Hinata smiling directly at her loving boyfriend. What brings you two out here this morning? He asked. Kiba, hello. Hinata. Naruto waved his hand in greeting. We were just heading to the training grounds because my sparring match with Sasuke is today, he explained. What about you? And where has Shino gone? Is he not with you? He finished, and they were now directly in front of Hinata and Kiba. Ah, well. Kiba began rubbing the back of his neck as Hinata tightly hugged Naruto. Kurenai-sensei had just called for a brief meeting earlier, and Shino has a special mission with his father. So it's mostly just me and Hinata out here. Now, getting down to business, did you just say you had a match today against your Uchiha teammate? Hinata pulled away from the blonde Uzumaki's embrace. Do you mind if Akamaru and I go watch? He inquired. I have nothing to do right now, and I don't want to sit at home doing nothing. The best I can do is go see what my friends are up to. Yes, why not? The more eyes on you, the better. Sakura immediately responded with a smile before turning to Hinata. Hinata, how about you? Do you want to come watch Sasuke-kun versus Naruto? Anyway, we're about to leave for the training grounds. Hinata gave a nod. Of course I'd watch. But I may not be able to stick around for long because I need to attend my daily training session with Nii-san. She started twiddling her fingers as a blush covered her cheeks. However, she continued, getting over her embarrassment, I want to spend whatever time I have left watching Naruto-kun. He's the reason I worked so hard to get stronger, so it's the least I can do for him. Hearing her explanation, Naruto smiled. Yeah, you two love each other. Kiba said, dismissing his teammate's reasoning as he turned to face him. Sakura, hurry up. You and Naruto will lead the way, and I and Hinata will trail close behind. When he returned his gaze to the three, he saw Hinata with a sweet smile on her face as the scene around her changed into flames and a Shinigami appeared behind her, similar to Naruto's earlier case. He gulped nervously, while Akamaru laughed at his misfortune. "Did I just hear you shoot me down, Kiba-kun?" she asked sweetly, fists innocently clenched. Kiba began to wave his hands furiously while shaking his head in denial, not wanting to see his teammate's wrath. It didn't, however, protect him from the punch to the gut that knocked him out instantly and turned his eyes into spirals. Akamaru jumped off his owner's head and poked the fallen Inuzuka with his tongue. Sakura began to sweat at Hinata's sensitivity to Naruto-related topics, while the latter began to pale at how frightening his girlfriend can be, as he internally prayed that he wouldn't do anything to irritate her. They were so engrossed in their trance that they didn't notice Hinata walking ahead of them, dragging Kiba by his arm. "Aren't you two going to lead the way?" she asked, using the same sweet voice she used on Kiba, prompting Naruto to rush in front of her. "Don't worry, I've got this," he exclaimed, taking the lead, with Hinata and Sakura close behind. For a few moments, silence reigned supreme. "We need to hurry, because Kakashi-sensei and the Teme are ARG." He was mid-sentence when something falling from the sky collided with his head, nearly knocking him out as he fell to the ground. Sakura and Hinata approached him quickly and began to assist him in standing up on his feet, and a lump on his head could be seen. As he tried to regain his composure, stars formed a circle above his head. "Hey, are you all right?" Sakura inquired, taken aback by what had occurred. "What the hell happened? Did something just hit you on the head?" "Seems like it," the blonde replied weakly, trying to alleviate his pain. "So, where is it? Surely it has to be some kind of kid-made prank, right? If you ask me, kids nowadays enjoy making a shambles. Surely it's just a water balloon or something fun to play with, right?" Naruto scowled as she made her suggestion. "Seriously? Did you notice the lump on my head?" he asked, pointing to the spot where he was struck. "Why was I hurt if you think it was just a toy? I wouldn't have fallen to the ground if it had been a toy, get it? I'm pretty sure it wasn't kids because it was obviously something heavy and made of metal. Maybe some villagers who still have a grudge against me, I don't know. So, where is it? We'd better figure out what it is before we discuss who threw it." Hinata then began looking in different directions to find out where the heavy and metallic object landed, and it wasn't difficult for them to do so, as they saw it just a few meters in front of Naruto. The Uzumaki was the first to approach it, raising an eyebrow at what he saw. There was a sword lying on the ground. A sword, indeed. I'm not sure how to describe it, but this is how it appears on the link without spaces, with S also after the hyper TTP. https, DN Angel White. DeviantArt Art, Star, Sword, Destruction 331,789,888. Full credit to the sword's creator. Wait, what exactly is this? Naruto exhaled, crouching down to get a better look, while Sakura and Hinata stood behind him, wide-eyed at what was on the ground. "Looks like a sword of some kind," he said, holding the weapon by the handle. While examining it, he noticed an intricate star pattern on its sheath. "Nice, I think this will fit me well if I ever use it," he said with a grin, slashing around with it like a real swordsman. What are you doing?" Sakura inquired of her teammate, raising an eyebrow. "Isn't it self-evident?" Naruto shrugged in response. "I'm attempting to impersonate Zabuza-sensei. This appears to be a sword made just for me, and it has stars all over it. It's perfect for me because of you know what." Sakura tried hard not to sound irritated. "I know that," she said, furrowing her brow at the sword he was holding. "Don't you think it's strange that it just appeared out of nowhere?" Naruto looked at her, perplexed. "Geez, sometimes I wonder why you became an elite chunin in the first place." She grumbled angrily, clutching her own hair. "Did you not notice that the sword you're holding just fell from the sky? I mean, We were all walking along peacefully until that thing slammed into your brainless head, get it? Naruto sat with his hands on his hips. Hey, I'm not brainless, he retorted, causing Sakura to glare at him and immediately put him in his place. But I understand your point, okay? He continued nervously. Do you think this was made for me by someone in the village? He asked, looking at the sword he was holding. Hinata and Sakura expressed their displeasure by shaking their heads. So, where do you think this came from? Because I don't believe this could have happened out of nowhere. The most plausible explanation I can think of right now is that a villager threw this at me and it hit my head instead. Unless you're claiming that this sword fell from the sky, I don't see why the two of you can't agree with me. Well, it's unlikely that a normal villager, let alone a ninja, would throw that sword at you, Sakura said as she crossed her arms. It doesn't make sense for a villager to just hand it over to you. They despised you back then. Now, do you think they'd give you a sword with stars on it just because you saved the leaf from an impending invasion? Because that was his only guess right now, the blonde Uzumaki just shrugged, causing the pinkette to scoff at him. That is, until Hinata said something. There's something behind the sword you're holding, Naruto-kun, she exclaimed, pointing to the weapon he was holding. This prompted Naruto to raise an eyebrow before inspecting it for himself. His eyes widened as he noticed a small parchment of paper stuck to the sheath, but there were no words written on it. He raised an eyebrow, then removed the paper and examined it from various angles, but there was nothing written on it. After some thought, he came up with a brilliant idea. He looked at the paper again, this time with his Uchtengan activated, and a smile spread across his face because there were now words visible on it. Only those who possessed his dojutsu could read the paper. His eyes were wide open the entire time, leaving Hinata perplexed. Is there something wrong, Naruto-kun? She inquired, but her lover was preoccupied with reading what was written on the paper. Hello once more, Naruto. I must say that I am very impressed with your tremendous progress with the Uchtengan. So far, you are the best choice that the eyes have made for a wielder. Well, that is because you are the only person who has used its potential and abilities. Hee. Anyway, true to my word, I made it clear that there would be one more gift from me when I sent Mika to your world. And now you have it. The gift I sent you is in the shape of a sword, which I designed and made myself. After its creation, I named it Stardust. The sword is forged from the core of a star and reinforced with minerals found inside comets, making it more suitable for use when your dojutsu is activated. The blade cannot be broken in any way, giving you a distinct advantage in battle. As you may have noticed, there were sword techniques mentioned in the scroll I sent you. That is precisely why it has them. Use this sword to keep pursuing your dreams. You want peace and the ability to protect the people you care about, don't you? That's exactly what I'd expect from Asura's reincarnate. Not only am I impressed with your progress with your eyes, but I am also proud of what you have accomplished while wearing them. I've actually been watching you for quite some time. I recall what happened to you at the time. You were despised by your own people for something that was not your fault in the first place. I'm aware of the Kyuubi that lives within you. It was implanted within you over a decade ago. I am aware of your mother's death, which you are still grieving over. She was murdered by the Akatsuki organization. Knowing what you've been through, Naruto Uzumaki, I dare to say you're one of the toughest people I've ever met. Your determination to succeed is admirable, as is your desire to see your dreams realized. You can put your faith in me, young one. Because we both want peace. You may have doubts or be curious about my allegiance and identity, but know that I will always support you because you were chosen by the Uchtengan. Your eyes were drawn to you because your heart is pure, so don't betray it. I wish I could tell you my name and who I am, but if only it were that simple, my boy. I can't just reveal my true identity to anyone because it will cause a ruckus in your society if it becomes public. That doesn't mean you'll never find out who I really am. Everything will be resolved in due course, Naruto Uzumaki. You just have to be patient, dear one. Continue to improve, Uzumaki, because you pique my interest. Particularly your big heart. This will not be the last message I send you. I can give you my word at any time. I'll contact you again soon. May the star's guidance shine brightly on you always. P.S. A regular shinobi cannot use stardust. In reality, anyone can use it, but its full power is only available if the wielder possesses the Uchtengan. If anyone tries to use it, its strength is reduced to that of a regular sword with no abilities. Stardust is only available to you because you are the only one in this world who carries the Uchtengan. You must continue your training to prepare yourself now that you have the 2 gifts I sent you. Make good use of these 2 gifts, Naruto Uzumaki. I am confident that you can outperform even the Sage of the 6 Paths if you continue to strengthen yourself. You must fully master all of the eye techniques as soon as possible, because nothing can guarantee your safety if he arrives and you are not trained. Naruto was taken aback by what he had just read. Many thoughts raced through his mind as he did so, especially since the old man who sent the message knew almost everything about him, which was both creepy and strange. How did he know so much about him? Has the old man been spying on him since then? How is that even possible? He has no recollection of meeting any elderly people back then. And if someone was watching him closely, Kurama or even himself could have sensed him, right? The last part of the message, however, seemed to irritate him the most, as it stated, when he arrives and you aren't trained, nothing can guarantee your safety. What was the old man even saying? Is it a monster? A beast? A biju? A rival shinobi? Except for one creature, no one could tell. Do you know what the last part of this message means, Kurama? Naruto inquired of the tailed beast within his body. Don't ask me. Even I don't know what it meant, Kurama replied, his arms crossed and his eyes narrowed in confusion. And don't even consider asking the phoenix. If we go over what happened when you tried to ask her, I'm pretty sure she has no idea what's going on either. You're correct. But does this mean the old man has been watching me all along? Did you notice anything out of the ordinary villagers around us? There wasn't anything. I had no feelings at all. It could mean he's either good at hiding or is watching from a distance. In any case, I'm surprised he knows so much about you. He even knows about the habanero and her death. And he also knows about me being inside of you. That's something only a Konoha villager or a spy from another country would know. Why, you don't think the person who sent this sword was Stardust? Didn't it come from another village's ninja? He inquired, a little nervously. I doubt it. He's obviously not joking about the sword because it's exactly what he said on that piece of paper. It's made from the core of a star, so it's authentic. Then he noticed Naruto staring at him. What? I was closely inspecting it while you were playing with it earlier, so don't give me that look, Kit. It's a little creepy. He apologized. Oh, sorry. So, what are you expecting me to do now? You want me to go and listen to what this old man is trying to tell me about training? He asked sarcastically. That's exactly what I was hoping for, the Kyuubi replied calmly, causing Naruto to widen his eyes at him. We have no idea who this old man is who sent you the phoenix and the sword, but you have no choice but to accept it. Right now, the best thing to do is just go with it and do what he says. We don't know if he's telling the truth about whoever is coming here, and neither you nor I trust him completely, but one thing is certain. He wishes for you to train. The scroll he sent, that sword, and your phoenix are just a few examples, so he must be dead serious about you becoming stronger. Do you see what I mean? Kurama sighed as Naruto nodded. So, what are you going to do now? He asked, raising an eyebrow at the blonde. I guess I'll just have to cancel our sparring match for today. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. He continued after looking at Kurama and seeing that the massive beast was still staring at him. "Stop looking at me like that," he exclaimed, a tick mark on his head. "Okay. Then maybe I'll go to Zabuza-sensei and ask him to teach me sword fighting." "Do you really think we should just ignore this mystery? We have no idea whether the old man who sent this is a good or bad guy. I don't want to make a decision that I will later regret. For the time being, Kit." The Biju waved him off. "Unless we can find more clues indicating whether the man who sent the sword is good or evil, you have no choice but to agree and do what is written there. After all, shouldn't you be pleased that you have a sword made especially for you? You weren't bragging about it earlier, were you?" Then the tailed beast smirked. "Don't worry, just go enjoy your new gift. I'll keep an eye on that letter to see what the real story is behind it." The blonde boy stared at Kurama with wide eyes, stunned by what the tailed beast had just said. He shook his head and grinned after a few seconds. "Wow, Kurama, thank you. You're the greatest. I now understand why Ka-san adores you. I knew I could rely on you. I know that." The Kyuubi replied smugly. "Now get back to reality because your friend has clearly been trying to get your attention since earlier." Naruto furrowed his brows in confusion as soon as he said that, but the Biju didn't give him time to think. "See you later, Kit," he said before disconnecting from the blonde Uzumaki. As soon as Naruto felt himself returning to the real world, he looked around. He was still standing where he had been. The Stardust sword remained in his right hand, along with the paper he was reading. Kiba remained unconscious, and Sakura just stared at him, wide-eyed. Most importantly, Hinata was staring at him with a concerned expression on her face. The blonde Uzumaki began to blink in confusion as to why Hinata was acting this way, prompting the Hyuga to widen her eyes and smile in relief. "Finally!" she exclaimed, clearly overjoyed. "Can you hear me, Naruto-kun?" she inquired. "Why yeah," he said, taking in his surroundings as he gazed down at the ground. "What happened to you?" she asked again, gently touching his cheek. "You looked out of it earlier, and you weren't responding when I called your name, which worried me." She then shifted her gaze back to the piece of paper he was holding. "Is there anything written on the paper?" "You looked shocked earlier as you read it." Naruto looked up and stared directly at his pink-haired teammate after her statement, his dojutsu visible to all. "Naruto-kun, why do you have your Uchtengan activated?" she inquired, but Naruto paid no attention to her. "And Naruto-kun?" She was starting to notice that his gaze was completely fixed on Sakura behind her. With a solemn expression on his face, he marched towards the pinkette, his grip on Stardust tightening. Sakura's eyes widened the entire time Naruto was now directly in front of her. "Have you seen Zabuza-sensei anywhere, Sakura-chan? Do I need to speak with him?" "Wait a minute, Naruto. What the hell is it?" She attempted to reason with him, but was cut off by her teammate. "I need to know where he is right now." He shot her away. "Where has Zabuza-sensei gone?" All right. She motioned him away. "Tell me what you're on about before I tell you anything. Did you read anything important on that piece of paper you're holding? Or do you have any idea where the hell that sword came from?" "Everything will be explained later. I simply need to locate Zabuza-sensei." "Fine. I last saw him this morning talking to Kakashi-sensei on his way to the training grounds. You should ask sensei where he went. He quickly left after a brief conversation. Can you please explain why you're at—" Before she could finish her sentence, Naruto was already running away, carrying the sword he found on the ground with him. Sakura and Hinata were left in their places, perplexed as to what was going on with him. They didn't even notice Kiba had awoken from his coma and was rubbing the sore spot on his stomach where his teammate had punched him earlier. "Hey, what's going on, you two?" he tried, raising an eyebrow at their stunned expressions. "Did something happen?" He wondered as he noticed Naruto was no longer with them. What happened to Naruto? Wasn't he right here with us earlier? He waited for an answer from their mouths, but he had no idea that both kunoichis were completely uninterested in him. A few seconds later, Sakura and Hinata exchanged glances before bolting down the path Naruto had just taken, leaving Kiba standing there, dumbfounded. What the heck is going on? Where are you going, you two? Oh, well, forget it. Akamaru, hurry up. He said, picking up his partner and fleeing, realizing that shouting from his position would be ineffective. What the hell is going on? First I get KO'd by a teammate, then I get dumped? Is there something wrong with me? He exclaimed angrily to himself. Arg. As he threw another rock into the open field, Sasuke screamed in frustration. Sakura had left him and Kakashi at the training grounds almost an hour ago to find Naruto. While the masked shinobi didn't seem to mind because he was reading one of his Icha books, the Uchiha was losing patience with each passing minute, convinced that his rival wasn't taking him seriously. When that Dobi shows up, I'm going to kick his ass. He grumbled to himself, fists clenched. I should not have let Sakura pick him up from his house. Previously, he agreed with Kakashi's suggestion that his pink-haired teammate be the one to fetch Naruto because he didn't want Sasuke to tire himself out before his battle. He was now regretting his decision because Naruto was clearly taking his time to arrive on time. For the first time in minutes, Kakashi looked up from his book and looked at Sasuke with concern on his face. I don't really see what you're complaining about, Sasuke. He said, trying to calm down his student. How about you try relaxing or reading a good book for a change? I believe Naruto simply had difficulty finishing his breakfast, so just wait. I'm sure he and Sakura are on their way here right now. He's now later than you, sensei. He retorted, a tick mark on his forehead. I'm going to give that Dobi a good beating when he gets here. Making me wait for no apparent reason. I'll show him I'm not to be trifled with. He declared, grinning maniacally. Kakashi could only stare at his student before noticing someone running towards them in the distance. It was a young boy with blonde hair holding something long in his right hand that resembled a stick. He recognized the blonde-haired boy right away because he was only aware of one. Well, look who decided to show up. He exclaimed, standing up and waving his hand to let Naruto know where he was. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at Kakashi before turning his head to look at what he was looking at, standing up from his seat, and taking a fighting stance. Finally, he exclaimed, delighted that Naruto had arrived. Come on, you wuss. I've been waiting for you for a long time, and I'm not going to take any chances. So you better fight me now or I'll He paused halfway through his desired statement when he noticed that the Uzumaki had simply walked past him without even looking at him, as he was looking directly at Kakashi. Are you ignoring me? He yelled, a tick mark appearing on his head once more. Don't you dare to leave me. Naruto ignored his rival's tantrum and continued walking towards Kakashi, who was staring at him as if hypnotized. He began speaking once he was face to face with his teacher. Have you seen Zabuza-sensei, Kakashi-sensei? He inquired. You were talking to him earlier, according to Sakura-chan. Kakashi questioned why Naruto would ask him that now of all times. Isn't he supposed to be fighting Sasuke now? Yeah. But aren't you fighting Sasuke today? We've been waiting for you since earlier, and he seems eager to fight you. Are you sure you just want to cancel your fight like that? He looked at Sasuke and saw that the Uchiha was perplexed by what was going on. This is far more critical. I must locate Zabuza-sensei immediately. When I do, I'll explain everything. Please, sensei, come on. Kakashi scratched the back of his neck. Well, if that's the case, I believe he's in the western part of the village, near the gym. He told me earlier that he didn't want to lose to me the next time we fought, and that guy suggested he try lifting a few things there. So, I guess he went off to do some weightlifting and other exercises. He sighed. Why did he have to be that way? He's starting to remind me of Guy. I can't take another ninja running around the village, grinning. He groaned, recalling his rivalry with Konoha's blue beast. He appears to have attracted in Zabuza's case. Okay, thanks sensei. He exclaimed as he dashed back towards the village, leaving him and Sasuke perplexed by what had just occurred. Sakura appeared not even a few seconds later, closely followed by Hinata Hyuga and Kiba Inuzuka. Where did Naruto go, sensei? Didn't he just come here? Sakura started, but Kakashi was too caught up in the moment to respond. Fortunately for him, Sasuke intervened to break his trance. The Dobi wanted to go find Zabuza for some reason I don't understand, said Sasuke, turning his head to face the three newcomers. Do you have any idea why he's so desperate? What happened while you were on your way to his house, Sakura? He inquired of his teammate, who seemed to ignore him. I'm talking to you. Sakura. Hey, Sakura. He attempted to call out to her. The Pinkette then looked at Kiba and Hinata and motioned for them to follow her, and they both nodded. With that, the three took off again, this time in the same direction as Naruto. Sasuke remained frozen in place until he recovered from his shock and began chasing after them. That's it, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. She yelled angrily, annoyed that he was ignored by everyone despite speaking loudly. Are you trying to ignore me? I'll demonstrate what it's like to be ignored. I'll find out what you're all up to. Back at the training grounds, Kakashi simply shivered as a result of his raven-haired student's good fortune today. Everyone who came across him simply ignored him. He sighed to himself before drifting off into his thoughts. I wonder what's gotten into Naruto's mind. He pondered before recalling seeing something in Naruto's grasp earlier. He didn't notice it at first because he was too preoccupied with what Uzumaki had asked him earlier. Wait, what was that on Naruto's hand before? It looked like a tanto or something. Wait, what's a tanto? He only uses a kunai for melee combat, so it doesn't make sense. Wait, isn't a tanto not that long? Then he sighed. Okay, I can't believe I'm saying this. But I'm also going to figure out what's going on. He was about to move on and head towards the gym to question Naruto about what was going on when he noticed a small folded piece of paper lying on the ground. Before picking it up, he raised an eyebrow and considered where it could have come from. Naruto was in front of me earlier. This must be his. And it must have fallen out of his pocket or something when he ran off, he thinks. He looked around and noticed that no one was around him and that he was completely alone. Naruto, I'm sorry. But I like to meddle in other people's secrets, he said with a perverted smile. If it involves you and your girlfriend, I won't hesitate to read it, he said as he began to unfold it, revealing 8 words written on it. Storm, ice, shadow, ears, door, dragon, future, and protection. Wait, what exactly is this? This isn't what I was hoping for, he exclaimed to himself. Wait a second. What the hell are these words? Ice, storm? Shadows, ears, a door, a dragon? Huh? Okay, this is getting strange. Future. And protect. Could it possibly mean that these words conceal a secret? I think I should go tell Hokage-sama about it. He was interrupted by a tug on his ear. Yeowch. He exclaimed as he began to cry anime tears of pain. He looked behind him and saw Anko with a suspicious expression on her face. Kakashi-kun, why are you out here by yourself? She raised an eyebrow at him and asked him with a suspicious look. Are you attempting to flee from me now? And no. I'd never do that, Anko-chan, he said almost immediately. Then why are you out here all alone? I was about to watch a sparring match between 2 of my students. But then something happened that caused them all to flee. And I'm the only one left here. Hee. Anko began to close her eyes at him. Look, I'm telling you the truth. I don't want to die today," he screamed in despair. She drew his ear closer to her mouth and started whispering into his ear, sending chills down his spine. "You had better be," she warned. "Or you're not getting dinner tonight," she said, finally letting go of him and placing her hands on her hips. "What are you going to do now? Didn't your students abandon you here?" She tried not to laugh at her own words. "If you want to go home, I'll give you the keys because I'm going out for some shopping and then some dango." "Oh no, I was about to go to the tower before you appeared out of nowhere," he replied, raising an eyebrow at her. "Wow, this is actually fantastic timing. Do you mind coming with me to the tower? I simply need to speak with Hokage-sama about something." He abruptly cut her off when she appeared to be about to respond. "It won't take long, and then I'll go shopping with you and we'll get ourselves some dango. What do you think, Anko-chan?" he teased, causing the purple-haired woman to blush furiously. He smiled to himself. That little trick always gets her, but he would only use it in critical situations to avoid overdoing it. She sighed and gave him a knowing look after only a few minutes of deliberation. "All right, I'll hold you to that promise. You're going to talk to Godem-sama, then go shopping, then eat dango?" she confirmed. Kakashi nodded sincerely, causing a smile to spread across her face. She took his hand in hers and leaned against his shoulder. "Lead the way, Kakashi-kun," she said quietly, causing the white-haired Junin to sigh with relief, grateful that he had escaped with his life. He never wants to see Anko angry because it nearly killed him many times, especially when she threatens to burn his Icha books or cut off Kakashi Jr.'s head. Kakashi became aware of something in the environment around him. For some reason, it was getting cold. When he decided to just leave it, thinking it was just a feeling, it became even colder as the seconds passed. He began to shiver visibly as a result of how cold he was, and it was a good thing Anko wasn't noticing. He shifted his gaze to his girlfriend and gently drew her attention to himself. "How are you, Anko-chan? Do you not feel cold? What's the deal with the weather today? It's hot, but it's also cold." He exhaled. "What are you on about? It's not even cold, idiot." She smacked him on the head. "Kakashi-kun, get your head out of the gutter." Despite the fact that he was feeling cold at the time, Kakashi decided that it would be best to just listen to her, so he nodded, ignoring how he was feeling. "All right, whatever you say, Anko-chan." Following that statement, the temperature in his surroundings appeared to slowly return to normal, causing him to shrug his shoulders. "Perhaps I was just losing my mind," he thought to himself, laughing internally. A hooded figure emerged from behind a tree not far away, bearing a solemn expression. "Damn, how did that blonde kid get such a thing?" That was clearly a note informing the people of our plans. "I can't risk it if they don't figure out what it means." His gaze then darted to the village. It appears that I'll have to divert their attention elsewhere. Fuko and Kenzo aren't ready to fight yet because they're still busy wreaking havoc. The eclipse isn't due for another 2 weeks. We need perfect timing for this to work.
He then pulled out a small, metallic object from his pocket that resembled a small spider as he returned his attention to the village. Perhaps this will divert their attention,
he said as he walked back towards the village. Sasuke was training at the Uchiha compound, not far from his home.
He had discovered the sword that Naruto had discovered earlier in the day, and unlike back then, when he kept his dojutsu a secret, he actually told the Uchiha all about it.
Except for the letter that came with it, of course. Despite his rage at Naruto's failure to wake up early for their planned fight, he simply moved on and suggested that they hold their desired sparring match at a later time. When the blonde Chunin left to begin training with Zabuza, Sasuke simply went home and continued his training.
After all, he needed to make sure he was strong enough to keep up with his opponent. Unbeknownst to him, a certain pink-haired girl had secretly followed him to observe him train.
After removing the majority of the training dummies, his eyes shot open as he began looking all around him after sensing another person's chakra signature in the area. Is anyone there? Demonstrate yourself. He yelled, his eyes narrowed at his surroundings.
Wait, there's more of them.
He thought to himself as he heard footsteps approaching him. He turned his head to see where they were and saw 4 ninjas approaching him.
They were the Sound 4, Orochimaru's elite bodyguards who assisted him during the failed invasion of Konoha. Who the hell are you?
Snarled Uchiha, dismissing their presence. If you know what's good for you, watch your tongue, one of them advised. He wore dark gray hair with long bangs that covered his right eye, and he wore green lipstick.
In addition, he had dark markings all around his eyes, giving him an androgynous appearance.
There appeared to be a person behind him, as there was hair similar to his just below his neck. He was dressed in a black shirt under a long brown tunic, skin-tight black shorts, and a purple belt tied around his waist. Saken, one of Orochimaru's elite bodyguards, was his name. We're not here to threaten him, another said.
She wore a black hat with bandaged sides over her red hair.
She also wore a brown tunic, black shorts, and standard shinobi sandals, as did the other members of the Sound 4. Tayuya was another member of the Sound 4. Keep your tone down, Saken. You might attract attention, the largest of them advised. He had a large stature in comparison to the rest of them, easily towering over the others. He had 3 tufts of orange hair on his head, a sort of mohawk down the middle of his head, and 2 similar tufts on the sides. He was dressed in a sleeveless tunic with the Sound 4 symbol on the hem, a black arm warmer, and black 3/4 length pants that ended just below his knees. He also wore sandals with bandaged leg warmers, a purple robe as a belt around his waist, and a necklace made up of several long, metallic pieces. Jirobo was another of Orochimaru's bodyguards. Orochimaru-sama has a proposal for you, one of them with dark skin said. He had shaggy black hair and black eyes. He had 6 arms and was dressed in a black sleeveless top and shorts. He also wore a brown tunic with the Sound 4 symbol on it and a purple rope as a belt around his waist. He was also wearing arm warmers and had bandages wrapped around his legs. Kitamaru was the final member of the Sound 4. Kitamaru began to speak again, and Sasuke furrowed his brow in confusion. If you come with us, we'll take you to him and give you all the power you desire. Even the power you desired in order to murder your brother. It is entirely up to you whether or not to remain here, he shrugged after that. You can either stay and play ninja with your friends, or you can come with us to where the real power is. Sasuke grinned. This was an attempt to persuade him to go rogue and join Orochimaru, an S-class criminal. He'd already decided a few days ago that he'd work with Naruto, his best friend, rival, to gain the power he desired, after learning how the Uzumaki became insanely strong in the blink of an eye. Why should I trust you? Last I heard, he got his ass whooped by Naruto, and he was just a genin like me at the time, he said mockingly, which almost prompted Saken to attack him if Tayuya hadn't intervened. A few seconds passed, but none of them had the courage to respond. I'm waiting. How can you say that Snake can give me something I obviously want when he can't even defeat a simple child? How can you describe that blonde brat as a simple? Tayuya inquired. He has abilities that none of us, not even Lord Orochimaru, were aware of. But rest assured, he will not escape the next time we face him. Sasuke smirked quietly, feeling sorry for her. Anyway, as Kitamaru stated, we are here to bring you to Lord Orochimaru, but only if you want to. We will not force you. He can grant you the power you seek, just as he did for us. You will be bound to Lord Orochimaru's will in exchange for the ability to defeat Itachi. To obtain something, something must first be sacrificed, and that something will be you. I don't like where this is going. Uchiha reflected. Something isn't right here. Sacrifice must be related to me. No, I shouldn't refuse them outright. I'll just play along with them and then have the Anbu chase their asses afterwards, he thought to himself, pleased that he had found a way to subdue them without fighting. That'll teach them not to mess with me, he concluded before returning his gaze to them. Fine, I'll believe you for. All of you seem to be serious about this, he said, his face serious. He noticed that the sun was about to set behind them. When are we leaving? Tayuya smirked, seeing that Sasuke was exactly as described by Orochimaru. The Uchiha would do anything for power, and this only made matters worse for them. Don't you need to bring anything? She inquired. Sasuke considered it for a few moments before nodding. We'll give you an hour and expect you to meet us at the village's northern gate. We do not tolerate tardiness, so please arrive on time. When she was finished, the four of them vanished in a blur, off to who knows where, leaving the raven-haired boy behind. He decided to make his move before it was too late, knowing he only had an hour. His decision had been made long before the four auto ninjas made their offer, and he wasn't about to leave the village now, or the next day, or the week after that, or even months later. True to his word, he was not going to succumb to his inner desire for vengeance just to hand himself over to the enemy in that manner. He made a promise to his best friend that he meant to keep. Time to report this to Hokage-sama, he thought as he began to walk towards the tower. But as soon as he left, a pink-haired girl emerged from behind a house in the compound, fresh tears streaming down her face. She had overheard what Sasuke and the four people across from him were discussing earlier. She overheard him agreeing to join them in order to achieve his goal. How could you, Sasuke-kun? She wondered. I was hoping you wouldn't give in. She sincerely hoped that the Uchiha would keep his word and stay in the village, where they were all happy together, but after hearing what she had heard, her hopes of being with him were shattered like glass. She clenched her fists lightly and quickly wiped the tears from her eyes before deciding on her course of action. I'm not going to let you go, Sasuke-kun. Even if I have to beat you into submission. She thought as she exited the Uchiha compound. Sasuke was waiting near the village's northern gate, just as he had promised the Sound 4. He had already informed Tsunade of the Sound Ninjas who had attempted to corrupt his mind and asked her if she could lend a few Anbu to arrive on the scene and subdue the four so that they would be aware of Orochimaru's current activities. All Sasuke had to do was convince them that he was serious about doing what they wanted before the Anbu arrived. He sat on a nearby bench and looked up at the night sky, only the moonlight and a couple of city lamps illuminating the surroundings. I'm glad Hokage-sama didn't ask any more questions earlier, he reflected. Not long ago. And what makes you think they're really involved in Orochimaru's deeds? Tsunade inquired, his brow furrowed. The Uchiha had only asked her to send a few Anbu near the northern gate later on, but it wasn't as simple as that. She had to make certain that it was for a serious matter. Orochimaru sent 4 Sound Ninja to the village to persuade him to join his side, believing he could give the raven-haired boy the power he desired, according to Sasuke. While Tsunade was initially surprised to hear from her former teammate so soon, she needed to be certain that it was the snake-like man she grew up with, because any talk about him was a sensitive subject for her. They said so themselves, Sasuke replied calmly. One of them even gave me the option of staying or leaving. I figured that if I openly refused them, things would get out of hand and they'd try to kidnap me against my will, so I resorted to agreeing with them and then informing you of what happened after they left. Tsunade nodded, resting her head on her hand on her desk. Sasuke wisely chose the path that would cause the least amount of trouble. She remained silent for a few seconds before beginning to speak again. Okay, I'll send a few Anbu to your meeting location with them later. You will, however, have to signal where they will make their move. You must know when you will get them to move in so that you can get to them without causing any conflict. You can create any type of signal you want as long as it does not raise suspicion. But are you certain that they will appear? Making the Anbu act on nothing would be a waste of time. I am certain. After I speak with you, I'm going to the edge of the northern gate because they only gave me an hour to pack what I need for the journey to Otogakure. In fact, I have over 30 minutes before I go there, so I can talk to the squad you'll be sending later on about what I do. Tsunade stood up from her seat and began to walk towards the door, motioning for the Uchiha to follow her. Flashback concludes. He smirked to himself, certain that his plan would be successful. He had previously spoken with the Anbu leader in charge of subduing the Sound 4 and informed him that he would perform the chirping of a bird as a signal for them to strike. After today, I hope that snake bastard learns not to mess with me again. He thought to himself. I've already suffered enough since he bit me in the neck. I'm not going to let him mess with my life here again. I can't just He was cut off when he heard footsteps in front of him, which was enough to shake him out of his reverie. Turning his gaze in front of him, he was only able to notice her distinctive pink-colored hair as she hung her head low due to the nearby city lamps. He jumped up from his seat, widening his eyes. Sakura? He exclaimed, surprised that the pinkette was here of all places. What exactly are you doing here? Shouldn't you be sleeping at home or something? It's getting late. She didn't respond and just kept walking slowly towards the Uchiha. Sasuke was too preoccupied with his thoughts to notice that she was slowly approaching him. She was right in front of him before he knew it. She suddenly wrapped her arms around him and buried her face in his shirt, sobbing uncontrollably. Sasuke was too stunned to say anything. She cried for a full minute before pulling away, tears still staining her eyes. I heard your little T talk earlier. With the 4 ninjas. T that wanted to take you to Orochimaru, she said between breaths, widening Sasuke's eyes even more. And all I have to say is, I don't want you to leave. She began shaking her head repeatedly, making her intentions clear. Please. I know you want vengeance. But you promised, didn't you? Why, you promised Naruto that you and he would become stronger together. Does that not mean anything to you? I know I'm bothering you, but please don't leave. She drew back and sobbed into her hands. I know you told me not to bother you anymore. But I can't stop myself. Sasuke-kun, I have feelings for you. No, I love you. I can't take it, even though you rejected me. You can call me whatever you want. Just don't leave. Please do not accompany them, Sasuke-kun. Please do not abandon me. The Uchiha was taken aback by what she had just told him. Was she still in love with him? Knowing she had held out filled his heart and soul with warmth and relief. In reality, he never intended to hurt her feelings during the exams. He was just so focused on becoming stronger and gaining more power that he didn't have time for socializing, let alone love. He was beginning to adjust to his team at the time, as evidenced by what happened during their time in the forest. His emotions were at odds within him, with one side urging him to become stronger and the other urging him to make friends and form strong bonds with them. But he was no longer conflicted because he had already made his decision. Sakura probably thought he was going to leave, which caused him to chuckle for a split second. He grabbed her chin with 2 fingers and raised it so she could look him in the eyes. Her face was flushed because they had never been this close before. You must have had the wrong impression, he said softly. Don't be such a moron as that Dobi. Sakura's eyes widened as she noticed her crush smiling gently at her. You know, this actually makes things a little easier, you know? Who knew you'd tell me how you really felt tonight? You said you love me, didn't you? The pinkette blushed as she realized she had just confessed what she had secretly felt for him all this time. I'm going to be honest. I didn't want to hurt your feelings during the exams, he began to explain, with the girl in front of him listening intently. I just wanted to show you that I'm not interested in love or relationships because I was too preoccupied with wanting to kill my brother, and you were really annoying. But I didn't want you to change for me. I just wanted you to stop bothering me, but just like Naruto, you seemed to change instantly after I said those words to you. You became much braver and stricter, which was ironic given that you were once our team's weakest link. When was the last time you behaved in this manner? Strict and frightening. He let go of her chin to allow her to respond. She began to twitch her fingers. I used to scold my cousins when I was little. Because I was the eldest of us all. And my mom and aunt wanted me to act mature so that everyone would stay quiet and everything would be in peace, she replied, unable to look him in the eyes. I see. And I assume this personality of yours vanished when I entered your life? Sakura gave a nod. Well, I don't want that. As I've said many times, I despise women who squeal my name all over the place, and you used to be one of them. When I was a kid, Naruto was the only person who treated me as an equal, not as someone superior to him. We caused the insults, fights, and trouble for one reason. We regard one another as equals. You experienced the same thing after I, said those things. Sasuke appeared to have difficulty repeating those words because he was afraid they would be hurtful. I was surprised to see that you could be more mature if you wanted to, and you stopped treating me like a prince. It became the opposite. You had no problem scolding or punching me whenever Naruto and I started fighting. I was intrigued by your new attitude, you were less annoying even though you were really scary. He finished jokingly, causing Sakura to chuckle a little. That's when it all started. Remember when you invited me to eat at the tower in the middle of Training Ground 44? He recalled. Flashback. Sakura and Sasuke were walking through the quiet hallways of the facility because Team 7 was the first to finish the second part of the Chunin exams. They didn't notice Naruto had left because he had chosen to rest in his assigned bedroom due to exhaustion. He used his meteor while carrying both Sakura and Sasuke, which resulted in him losing a significant amount of chakra. Sasuke was the first to notice that it was unusually quiet where they were, which was supposed to be impossible because Naruto is notoriously noisy. He abruptly came to a halt and turned around, only to discover that the blonde Uzumaki had vanished. What the hell? Where the hell did that Dobi go? He muttered, crossing his arms. When the Uchiha said that Naruto wasn't with them, Sakura turned around as well. She also noticed that he wasn't there, which caused her to raise an eyebrow before turning to face Sasuke. Perhaps he decided to rest in his room? She speculated, prompting the raven-haired genin to scoff. I don't have time for your dismissive attitude, she groaned as she continued down the hall. I'm going to get something to eat. If you want to come, just follow me, she said. The Uchiha considered it for a while before his stomach grumbled. He sighed and followed his pink-haired teammate's lead. This is interesting. She's no longer the same annoying girl. I think I like this side of her more. He thought to himself as he stared at the girl in front of him. Flashback concludes. And that's when I decided to keep a close eye on you. Not in a perverted way, of course. He said, assuaging Sakura's suspicions. I wanted to see if you had truly changed or if you were just playing with me. You weren't the same person you used to be. You aren't annoying, whiny, clingy, or frail. You've changed. And I can honestly say that. His face flushed, which was unusual for a Uchiha. I have feelings for you, Sakura. He revealed, widening the pinkette's eyes in surprise. I'm not sure when it started, but I believe it's because you changed. I found myself drawn to you. What makes you think I've spent more time with you than the Dobi in the last few weeks? I didn't even realize it until it was too late. I only became aware of my own emotions while in the hospital, reflecting on what had occurred. So don't be concerned about my departure, okay? It was all part of my plan. What exactly do you mean, plan? She would have preferred to inquire about his feelings, but that wasn't important at the moment. She needed to be certain that he wasn't actually leaving. Were you listening earlier? Pinkette gave a nod. I didn't forget what Naruto and I talked about back then. I wanted to be his friend again, to start over and rebuild what we had before. I'm not going to throw it away like that. I'm not going to give in to my inner desires. Sakura, I may want vengeance for what happened to my mother and clan, but I will do it the right way. I promise not to leave. You can. How does the Dobi put it? Believe it. He exclaimed, trying to imitate Naruto's voice, which made the pink-haired Chunin laugh. It was then that they realized they were getting closer to each other. And time seemed to have slowed down. As they stared into each other's eyes, their smiles were replaced by blank expressions. Sasuke made no attempt to push her away as her arms found their way behind his neck. Only the beat of their pounding hearts could be heard in the silence that surrounded them. Except for them, no one else was present. They didn't even feel like they were being watched or followed. Everything felt right. It wasn't incorrect. It was correct. Sasuke-kun. Sakura. She closed her eyes, anticipating what would happen next, only to be met with a massive punch to the gut. A gut punch, indeed. She opened her eyes and fell to her knees, her arms immediately going to her stomach as she screamed in pain. Because of how painful it was, tears immediately pooled in the corners of her eyes. She was completely vulnerable because she wasn't expecting it, so she was at her weakest. Herzing in pain, she looked up to see what was going on and began crying her eyes out at what she saw. Sasuke stood in front of her, his face twisted with rage. He was evilly grinning, and his eyes made him appear insane. As he looked into the Pinkette's eyes, his Sharingan flared to life.
This will be the last time you hear from me, Sakura.
He exclaimed happily, looking up into the sky as the wind blew through his hair. I will never give up my dream of exacting revenge on Itachi. I don't need you or this town. I want to go somewhere where there is power, and only Orochimaru can give me that. Sakura managed to furrow her brows in confusion despite being in excruciating pain. What happened just now? What the hell? She thought to herself. Sasuke-kun wasn't always like this. What happened? Was he teasing me all along? No, wait. He would never do something like that. If he wanted to leave the village, he would have told everyone right away. It's not Sasuke-kun. It's almost as if someone is controlling his thoughts. Is someone a— Before she could finish, she felt something pierce her heart, and her mouth dropped open. Why, you're not Sasuke-kun. She exhaled before collapsing to the ground, unconscious.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.